All right, we are back with another very special edition for you. Our special guest is the world renowned lead vocalist, guitar, songwriter, frontman of the mighty JACKYL. Please welcome Jesse James Dupree.
What up, my brother? How we doing?
Jesse, I love it, man. Look at this, man. Finally made it happen. And I got to say, we are fellow Virgos. September rocks,
Yeah,
brother. You're the 22nd, I'm the 5th. So it is coming up. And of course, you're from Georgia. And we love what you've done. But I know there's so much more you're about to do. So we're going to celebrate all that with the fundamentals of rock and roll.
that's right.
I got to assume you grew up with Grand Funk and Ted Nugent and, Skinner and AC/DC, Humble Pie. Talk about those roots besides the country you heard your dad playing.
Yeah, I did. I mean, I actually grew up, and my parents had a jukebox back in the '70s in Gadsden, Alabama, on this old cafe that they owned. And so I got exposed to James Brown and the Rolling Stones and Deep Purple and Joe Tex, who was my favorite, and it just
I got you.
Yeah, I got you. Just all those, those great original screams and the guys that invented the stuff.
Oh yeah, man. Stax Records, all that Southern stuff.
Yeah,
Incredible stuff coming out of Memphis and Chicago and Alabama, Mississippi. And so 91 comes around, you form the band, and boom, here comes John Kalodner, who's working with like the likes of Aerosmith and Whitesnake and all this, signs you guys to the mighty Geffen Records, who were red hot. Talk about how did John find you guys and talk about making a debut album.
oh, we found John. I mean, we were focused and committed that John was going to be the guy that signed us. We had every major label coming at us wanting to offer us a deal, and we were broke as dirt. And somehow or another, we were just so cocksure that John needed to be the one, that we just held out until he signed us. And the attorney that was representing us, he just felt like we were going to go ahead and sign a deal with any of these other guys. And I basically had to threaten to go to Nashville, Tennessee, where the attorney was from. I was going to go and tar and feather him. I mean, I was livid that he had gotten everybody in the world but John. And it was to the extent that he literally walked into the office and told John Kalodner, look, here's the band that wants you to sign them, and everybody else is wanting to sign them. And if you want them, they're yours. No bidding war, no nothing, they're yours. And John thought that was interesting and said, okay. So he signed us.
Wow. So Brendan O'Brien making that first record, who now has done multiple AC/DC albums. He's produced everybody. Talk about how important he was in the mix to get that raw sound and be, competitive.
Well, I first discovered Brendan O'Brien in underground Atlanta back in the '70s. And Brendan was playing in a band called Pranks. And it was a great band. And he was a badass guitar player, Joe Perry cool. And it stuck with me. I mean, this is before the internet and cell phones and stuff. So you got to realize what kind of impression he made on me back then. And so when we got signed to our record deal, 10 years later from the first time I saw it, because I didn't know Brendan. I didn't know him. I just thought there was something special about him. And so when we got signed to our record deal, John was wanting to know, he was wanting to pick a producer to produce our first album. And we initially thought, okay, Mutt Lange or Jack Douglas, or we were naming off all these big guys, right?
Yeah.
And he said, no, I want to find the next big guy. And I didn't even hesitate. I said, Brendan O'Brien. He started laughing. He goes, who? I said, Brendan O'Brien. He goes, who's that? And I said, well, I think he's going to be big. And John, he goes, I want somebody that's going to be the next big thing, but not somebody I've never heard of before. And I said, well, he's doing some staff engineer stuff with Rick Rubin, but I think he's going to be great. And so John, about 2 weeks later, called. He goes, I met with that Brendan kid. He goes, I think you're right. I think he's going to be good. So we gave him his first gold record for producing.
Wow. Well, I've spoken to Mike Frazier several times up there in Vancouver, and you guys go up there to make the second record. Push comes to shove. The late, great Bruce Fairborn, Mike Frazier in there mixing. He won a Juno Award for it. I mean, he's worked on like the last 8 AC/DC albums. I see a parallel universe going here, you and Brian Johnson and the boys. Talk about, doing a follow-up record and making it in Vancouver, where so many of those big records, the Bon Jovis and the Aerosmiths and the Motley Crues and
Yeah.
everything was going down back then.
Yeah, it was interesting because we're just some Southern boys. I'm from Georgia, and that we had to make the first record in Canoga Park, California, and so we did our damnedest to dirty that studio up so that it was, so that it felt like home. And we did. We brought in chickens and roosters and bales of hay. And if you listen to the end of the Lumberjack song, when I go in and roost up those chickens, I mean, those are for real. Those were in the studio with us. At the end of the song, you'll hear those chickens, and they were literally, I swear on my kids, they were literally in the studio with us. And so then we went to Vancouver, and we got a little bit of trouble in Vancouver. If you look on the inside of the credits for the Push Comes to Shove album, you'll see that we thank the constables up there, the police department, because they let us go because we carried that shotgun microphone stand of mine in there, and they caught us firing off the shotgun outside the studio, and I was up at Brian Adams' house doing vocals, and we lit a bunch of illegal firecrackers and stuff up in his neighborhood, and I got in trouble. So we were in trouble a couple of times in Vancouver, but we as with everything, we leave our stain wherever we go.
Well, no question. After 9/11, I think it'd be a little harder getting the shotgun mic over the border, but it's certainly rock and roll. And of course, you're touring with Aerosmith, touring with ZZ Top, the Reverend Billy Gibbons, the late great, the bassist Dusty Hill, Frank Beard. Talk about those experiences of learning from the best of them.
Well, I mean, those are the guys that did influence me, and I had paid for their houses going to see their concerts. Everybody from ZZ and ACDC and Ted Nugent and like all the things you said. So, to now be able to say that those guys are our friends, it's a big deal. So it doesn't pass me lightly. I take it very serious, and am proud that we've been able to achieve, a little bit of what they did, rolling down that same road they all paved for us.
Yeah, and you performed at Woodstock '94. I know it's kind of a blur with so many bands. You come in and you do your thing, but did you hang out with any greats there? What was the experience looking at that vast crowd?
Well, that's two different things. I mean, the crowd, 500,000 people or better, very surreal experience. It's like playing to the ocean. It was a really, really a surreal experience. But as far as hanging out with, it was really an eclectic bunch of us. Everybody from Joe Cocker and to Metallica to Blues Traveler to Aerosmith. It was just a really, really, the backstage was pretty surreal. Crosby, Stills, and those bunch, and just to be around all of that in such a setting, because everybody had to basically come in and camp out for a day or so. So it was somewhat reminiscent, I guess, of the original Woodstock with not quite as much chaos, although we did have a considerable amount of rain.
Yeah, we saw the mud, and it's always interesting to be on stage and see people flinging mud and all that. But it's there's a documentary if those that want to go see it, talking about a hardworking band, the work ethic that you grew up with. Working on farms and working construction. Talk about these Guinness Book of World Records, 100 concerts in 50 days, and then topping that with 21 concerts in 24 hours.
Yeah, not something that I want to go and do again, but I can say that I did it. It was a moment in time, and we had it in us to go do it. I challenge any other band to do it in the same fashion we did it. It really was a extraordinary feat that we pulled off, with everything being strapped down to the tractor trailer rig. But we got through it. Nobody died, so it was. I was exhausted when it was done, but we pulled it through.
Well, that's it. You might have to rest for a few days afterwards, but you can look at that Guinness book for years to come and know that it would be hard for any band to top that. That's for sure. Now, talk about the mighty AC/DC and the connection between you guys. I was lucky enough living in Vancouver back in 1980. I interviewed Brian Johnson, the Young Brothers, backstage at the third concert Brian ever did with the band. Back in Black, Vancouver, Pacific Coliseum. They did two warm-up shows in Winnipeg and Manitoba, but here's Vancouver, third show. It was the loudest show I'd ever heard in my life. I discovered professional hearing protection after that. But I'm interviewing the guys. I'm looking at my signed Back in Black and Highway to Hell albums on my wall right now in my office. But talk about being a fan of the band, and I know camping out to get your Back in Black tickets, the fact that Brian Johnson is now singing on your records and Cliff Williams and Brian are staying at your house.
They're just really great guys, and there's a point that every band gets to in their career where they have to decide if they're going to be an asshole or not. And some bands, it's important for them to be that guy 24/7. And then there's another path that you take where you just, you realize that, that you don't want to have to try to stay in rock star mode 24/7. You just want to have some semblance of a real life and be a real guy. And Brian and Cliff and those guys, that's how they are. They're Ted's that way. I'm just really great guys. And come stay at the house, no bodyguards. I mean, it's just, and I've always modeled my life after. I've been very blessed to have all my dreams come true, if you will.
Yes.
And so it's a big deal. And again, they're great role models.
Yeah, I mean to look up Adam, after the loss of Bon Scott, after the loss, rest in peace, Malcolm Young, that they're still doing it. Big shows coming up here in the U.S., including the Rose Bowl right here in Los Angeles. It's amazing, that they're still able to do it. We don't know how much longer, but you look at that legacy, the Rock and Roll Hall of Famers, and it's pretty amazing. But that earlier period, what did Bon Scott mean to you as a front man?
Well, Bon was, he was such the definition of rock and roll. I say this with all due respect. If he was alive today, he'd be dead. I mean, he's one of those guys that he was just committed to the lifestyle. You know what I'm saying? And I don't mean that in a negative way. I'm just saying he just lived that life, and that's how real it was. So real that that unfortunately happened. And again, I say it with utmost respect. I was not being cute or funny when I said. He literally. There's just certain people that they are nothing but rock, and just they are nothing but the lifestyle. And in a total different sense of what I meant a while ago when I said that some guys, they have to decide if they're going to be an asshole or not and be that guy 24/7. And that's when it comes to being in your persona. But Bon he was just Bon. And same thing with Keith Moon. Those guys were they just defined that lifestyle. And that was a different day in rock. That was a totally different day in rock music. And I think it took those guys to maybe put guardrails up for others, just how real it can be. Because it's when you're out there day in and day out and you're hitting it so hard, touring in town after town and people after people that will indulge you and then some. It's the people like Bon Scott and Keith Moon and even Hendrix and those and Jim Morrison, those guys, I think they were martyrs in the sense that they're the ones that kind of put the guardrails up that this is not a joke. And you can have the lifestyle, but you need to keep some guardrails up because it's that serious that it'll kill you. And I know it sobered me up. Losing Bon and seeing what happened to other greats, it sobered me up. In the sense of this is no joke. And Brian, Brian is just, Brian lives rock, and Brian's everything that is rock as well. And trust me, he can throw down with the best of them. But I think that again, I think that if we did anything from those greats like Bon or Keith Moon, or I think we learned. I think we learned, and because it was inevitable that some of those things, some of those people we were gonna lose them. And but I'm glad that I'm glad Brian was there to step in, and what a phenomenal legacy he's left.
Yeah, I call it one of the most seamless changes between lead singers. They became so much bigger with Back in Black. So while they had their core audience, it was really about this new audience now discovering the band, and then finding out there was a previous singer and previous albums. So it was great timing, and hats off to Brian and the Young Brothers for pulling that off. I was lucky enough, being a promotion guy for the last 50 years, I went on the road with him for a number of dates on the Highway to Hell tour through Texas up through Denver. And Bon was the consummate front man, had the girls, the party, but delivered on stage. And being front row working with those guys in the Rainbow Music Hall in Denver, Colorado, there's no barrier between the crowd. So your elbows are on the stage. And Angus and Bon in full flight, easily one of the best shows I've ever seen in my life. So rest in peace to the great Bon Scott. Now let's talk about Sturgis, because even though the bike rally goes way back to the 20s and 30s, it's exploded in the last couple decades, and a big reason is also your bar Full Throttle, which has now been reborn into the 600 plus acre compound that you have now, and your work with Harley Davidson. I've spent time with Willie Davidson out here at the Love Ride, that Glendale Harley Davidson put on for so many years, so many incredible concerts with the Foo Fighters and ZZ Top and everybody. But talk about, your love for Harleys and the fact that Sturgis and the bikers are a very giving community.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very proud to work with the Harley Davidson Motor Company. We have a series called Rolling USA. You can go to the Rolling USA Facebook page, and you'll see we give away motorcycles and trips and just a lot of cool stuff. And there's a big campaign going on right now where you can go to your local participating Harley Davidson dealership, and you can register to be part of a big Let's Ride challenge. We're challenging 50,000 riders between now and October 31st to ride 50 million miles. And when we hit 50 million miles, the motor company's going to make a $1 million donation to veterans charity. So it's something everybody should go. And along the way, if you participate, you got a chance to win one of 5 beautiful motorcycles.
Well, it's incredible the support you show, not only for the bikers community, but the veterans. The veterans are the core of America's freedom, and it's so important. Some of the veterans felt, discarded after serving our country and fighting for our freedoms that we take for granted every day.
Yeah.
About how important it is to support the veterans.
Well, I mean, I've been blessed to get to work with like the likes of the VFW organization, and just those guys wear their heart on their sleeve, man. I mean, they mean it every day. So it's a big honor to work with those guys, and have them partnered with Harley Davidson, along with the Buffalo Soldiers and the Wounded Warrior and the American Legions. And so, yeah, it's a big deal. To work with all of those guys. It's an honor because they wore the uniform.
Yeah, my father fought in Vietnam, so I can relate, that the head of your family is gone, and you don't know if you're ever going to see him again.
Yeah.
One of the joyous days of my life when he returned home safe and sound. But it's really incredible these days. The music industry has changed so much, but you've really built this independent world. And when you look at it, even bands like Metallica, the biggest band in the world, are independent these days. Motley Crue is independent. So many of the big groups run their own labels, put out their own music, do their own thing, and you have that freedom to kind of do deals with different types of companies. Like you're involved with TV, and you got your whiskey and all that. Talk about the freedom of being independent.
Well, I mean, it's just the nature of the business. I mean, digital technology changed everything. And we still have a distribution deal through Universal. And but you can find all of our stuff on the Spotify and YouTube and all that kind of stuff. And I released a solo album a couple of months back and called Breathing Fire, and you can find it out there. It's a serious rock, a slab of rock and roll. So yeah, it's just, I mean, it's just the way, it's just the way of the times. I mean, old traditional record companies are just gone now.
And talk about your association with DMC, Daryl McDaniels, Rock and Roll Hall of Famer, Run DMC, legendary hip hop group that blurred that line between rock and hip hop with their Aerosmith Walk This Way collaboration.
Yeah, D was recording in the studio here in my studio in Atlanta, and my son came in and goes, "Dad, DMC's in the studio, and he wants you to come say hello." And so a couple hours later, we were still sitting there chatting, and we ended up writing a song together. We written several songs together, and he comes out to it. He'll be with us at a big show in Ohio coming up here in June, and he'll come out, sit in with us, and we'll do It's Tricky and Walk This Way, and just we'll do about 30 minutes worth of stuff.
That's incredible. I know he's a huge rock fan, and
Yeah,
I know a lot of people, are very segregated. They think, well, you can only like one kind of music, but rock and country and soul and funk and hip hop and all this music. I always say there's only two kinds of music: music that moves you and music that doesn't. And if it moves you, then don't give a fuck about what it's called or what some critic names it.
that's true. That's true. I mean, we've made a connection with Brian Johnson. We made a connection with DMC, and just keep rocking, keep doing our thing.
Yeah, talk about breathing fire and what the difference is. JACKYL is well established. You got your boys, but you also have these songs you're kind of working on your own. And Brian comes in. What's the difference between a JACKYL album and a Jesse album?
Well, I mean, it's still straight up rock and roll, and it sounds like a lot alike because obviously I'm singing. But if you get in and listen to it, there's some different depth to it, little different direction, some things in some of them. And but I'm playing with my son is the main thing. My playing with my son is a big deal. He plays drums and guitar. So doing an album with him and Roman, the bass player from JACKYL, doing an album with the two of them because Nigel grew up jamming with Roman. So it's a little bit different pocket, but not one's not better than the other. It just is what it is. And for me, it's just a big thrill to play with my son.
Yeah, I know you got some great shows coming up. You're coming out west. You're doing the Eras Bike Week, and now finally back in California doing the Bay Area and Reno, and coming down to the legendary Whiskey A Go Go,
Yeah.
where bands like Led Zeppelin and Alice Cooper and AC/DC and Judas Priest, everybody has graced the stage of that famous club, the only club that's in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. That, of course, is April 9th. And I know it's important to you to keep the fire burning in all of these markets. How excited are you to come back to the West?
Well, again, it's been a couple of years since we've been there. The Whiskey is a legendary place. Well, we're going to still, nonetheless, we're going to turn it into JACKYL's Bar and Grill when we get there and make it count. And we'll make up for some lost time. And we invite everybody to come out there and don't come see the show, come be part of it.
Well, I know that's super, super important. And talk about your love for country music, growing up here in Waylon Jennings and Willie Nelson and Johnny Cash and all that. So much of the new country is more rock than a lot of rock. Talk about the fact that rock and country and soul really are all kind of intertwined.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. There's a lot of people want to debate about what they call new country. I mean, that's kind of always been the case. But I did grow up with the original stuff. I mean, there's no more anybody any more heavy metal than Johnny Cash, and I mean that guy was so multidimensional, and just his sheer attitude alone was nothing but metal rock. But yeah, just I grew up just blue collar working class people that bust their knuckles 40, 50 hours a week or more. And when it comes time to jam, they want to do it loud, proud, hard, and honest, and with a drink in their hand. So that's kind of what we give to them. And I did grow up listening to to what I call the original country music, and I still do.
Well, we loved one of your latest singles, "Get All Up in It." I can hear the Joe text in
Yeah.
there and all of that. Talk about what else is cooking in your world, being a perennial entrepreneur like you are. You got the Sturgis, the bikes, the whiskey, the solo, the JACKYL. What else you got up your sleeves?
Well, just tell me, we got Sturgis is the 85th annual Sturgis Motorcycle Rally this year. So we invite everybody to come be part of that. Stay with us at the Full Throttle Saloons Pappy Hoyle Campground. That's PAPPYHOEL campground.com, Pappy Hoyle campground.com. And you make your reservation, come stay with us. You got a large stage, Olympic size swimming pool, 300 cabins, 1,000 RV hookups. I mean, it's just a tent camping for days. It's beyond Thunderdome out there in Sturgis. And then I've got the Harley Davidson campaigns and partnership going on that we're excited about with you know giving away a motorcycle coming up. Matter of fact, we got Rolling Laconia's about to start, so you can go out to your participating Harley Davidson dealerships and register to win all kind of cool stuff, and including getting registered to be part of the National Ride Challenge, where again we're looking to make $1 million donation to veterans charities once our collective customer riders go out there and ride 50 million miles between now and October 31st. You'll just go register and you'll go back to the dealership repeatedly and update your miles. And it'll be a really cool thing for you to be part of raising the $1 million and a chance for you to win one of 5 Harley Davidson motorcycles.
Well, Jesse, I know you came up in an era where the music was in the jukebox with your parents, and music's in every local club and dive bar everywhere you go. The kids today, they've pushed music out of the schools. It's all computers and video games and all that. How important is it for the next generations to learn the fundamentals of music, whatever style it is, but to learn not only that work ethic, but to create something and keep the spirit of what rock and roll and these musics have been now for over 100 years? How important is it to keep it alive?
Well, I mean, I think it's important just in general for, if you're raising your kids, raise them to rock, raise them to ride, raise them to get out from behind that screen and go do stuff. And that's the main thing. Just let music be part of educating them to get away from their phones, whether it be riding a motorcycle, Harley Davidson, or whether it be playing a musical instrument, or going and seeing the Black Hills of South Dakota for the rally. But just get away from the phones, and a family that rocks together stays together.
Well, Jesse, we plan to be there at the Whisky. Want to encourage everyone to come out. Look at JACKYL.com for all the tour dates, Arizona Bike Week, Cali, Nevada dates coming up. Look forward to. I got a guitar in my office. I got signed guitars from everybody you love on my walls. I'd like to bring out a guitar and have you and the boys sign it. How's that?
Sounds like a plan, man. I appreciate you letting me get on here and invite everybody to come out to the shows. JACKYL.com's got all the dates. We will be at the Whisky on April the 9th. So I'll see you there, man. Thank you so much. You have a great day, buddy.